to see everyone.
Hi, everybody. All right, I'm Greg Glenday. This is Veronica Taylor, and we're going to talk about podcasts tomorrow, so the next 10 years. So we're Acast. Let's start by talking about the first 10 years of podcasting, kind of primordial soup, single-cell organisms, not a lot going on until 2014. So Acast was founded in 2014 within weeks of Serial launching. So pretty much a watershed moment in podcasting. So the last 10 years, explosive growth, fairly chaotic in the business, right? A lot happened. So that takes us up to the present day. We're really excited about what's going to happen here. I have a bunch of colleagues, some in this room. I got into this business a year ago, and I was warned that maybe the growth was done and now it's a mature business and the bloom is off the rose and it's time for podcasting to grow up. We actually disagree. At Acast, we feel like we are at base camp. We're not at the mountaintop. We think that podcasting is just getting started. So I think this is a really exciting time. We're going to take the next 8 to 10 minutes to explain why we think that's true. So, I'm going to date myself a little bit. I started selling radio, and one of my tricks when I started selling radio was to go to the actual network broadcast TV upfronts and sneak in. And that was a way to have lobster tails and champagne on somebody else's dime, meet all the clients, and then watch them knife fight each other for Seinfeld and Friends inventory. It was really scarce, and that was a real upfront. This is different. What you see behind me is a representation. These are our top 500 shows. We have 125,000 shows globally. These are our top 500 shows, and it's going to take about 1 minute and 49 seconds just to show you the thumbnail art for these shows. So the idea that we would just kind of pick 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 of our shows and bring them up on stage didn't make sense. We really want to give you the full breadth and experience of what Acast is and how we think about the business. So we're up to the, I think we're up to the O's, so I'll continue here. So quick snapshot, we were founded 10 years ago, a couple of Swedish guys in Stockholm, and they did pretty well, right? So from that moment, 10 years, now we have 125,000 shows, 400 million monthly listeners, 100 million uniques. We have offices, 20 plus offices in 15 countries around the world. For better or for worse, we invented dynamic ad insertion, so you're welcome, or I'm sorry. And the reason that we really believe that the growth is just getting started is we released our earnings. We're a public company on the Swedish Stock Exchange. We released our earnings on Tuesday. We grew 25% globally in revenue, all kinds of indications pointing north, and 48% growth in North America. So we really do feel like we're just getting started after 10 years to still have growth like that, and we're just getting started in a lot of ways. There's a lot of tailwinds. So for the last year or so, words matter, and I'm not big on semantics, I'm not a wordsmith, but we've been kind of using this as our North Star. And Acast for a few years used to say that we were in between the creator and the advertiser, which is true, but it's not only true, right? There's a difference, and this matters. There's a difference between the creator and their audience. And for a long time, podcasting, you couldn't really differentiate, right? One of our favorite shows, Mark Maron, is one of our shows. He's an OG, everyone knows him. If you listen to his show, he's got cats. He talks about cats. He's got kittens. He's got older cats. Cats are a part of the show. But he's a 60-year-old male comedian in Los Angeles. His audience is not exactly the cat audience, right? And there wasn't a whole lot of ways to tell that until recently. So we sell a whole lot of cat food on his show. We get a lot of those ads. But if truth be told, now we know that his audience under-indexes for cat owners. So while that's still appropriate, there are better places. There are lookalikes. There are ways to target and sell more cat food. So we're getting more sophisticated as a business, which is really exciting for our brand partners. So this flywheel we talk about, it all starts with the creator, right? It's not chicken and the egg, it starts with the creator. Nothing happens without great creators. We think those great creators, as they get better, they bring really engaged audiences. Really engaged audiences bring bigger and better and more sophisticated advertisers. More advertisers bring better creators, and so on. And that's kind of the next 10 years, so the end. That's how we feel that growth is going to happen. So let me show you a little bit about, since we didn't bring any of our talent on stage besides Veronica, let me show you a little bit about how we pull all these constituents together.
If you like it, then I love it. Put some extra on the next one.
Hey y'all, now we got a special bonus episode of Couples Therapy presented by Nordstrom and Acast Creative with plenty of time to get your gift list together.
It's Sleep Awareness Week, so obviously Mattress Firm reached out to us to let you guys know what our favorite things to do in bed are.
Ooh, I like that.
Hi, I'm Michelle Norris, host of the brand new podcast, Your Mama's Kitchen, where I am so excited to partner with Maker's Mark because just like our show, Makers believes in celebrating the people who have inspired us to pursue our passions.
We are so excited to be part of the Acast network with our new podcast, Let Me Fix It.
Our reach is unbelievable. Also to understand that we're gonna be in Europe.
For those of us who didn't peak in high school, those teenage years were pretty angsty.
All right. Okay, so the flywheel. So let's dig a little bit into the first one, creators, and who better than our global head of content in the Creator Network, Veronica Taylor.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. I do love starting with the creators, not gonna lie. Obviously, we all are here in part because we know that the key reasons for that podcasting is so effective for advertisers is because audiences really trust their favorite podcast hosts. You guys have probably already seen this fine stat today, or you will see it more today, because we should be talking about this. It's really exciting, right? A recent survey showed that respondents found that 75% of them connected better with podcast hosts than any other media personalities in their lives, way outperforming social media influencers and Hollywood celebrities. That's really exciting, and that really shows kind of how we're getting to a word of mouth at scale stance in this industry. At Acast, we have literally hundreds of thousands of podcasters that we work with. We have a very deep bench. So from niche independents who helped better organize your pantry, and to top publishers who investigate how international affairs and bots played a part in the Amber Heard-Johnny Depp trial. We welcome podcasters of all sizes and genres to join us at Acast. They use our technology, they sign up to be part of our marketplace, but we also cultivate a premium invite-only creator network made up of the best independent voices across genres. We talked about Mark Maron, Michelle Norris, Danny Pellegrino's another one. We also have a lot of trusted premium media brands. That's the BBC and The Economist, down to everyone from Adweek, HuffPost, everything in between. But that's a very simplified kind of vertical way of looking at our content. We really do feel like we have a very deep bench of podcasters of all sizes, topics, tone, genre, any market you want to reach. We really do have it all. And the common thread for all of our shows is that we really actively seek out hosts who create the type of content that connects authentically with dedicated, loyal audiences. And we talked about this a lot last year for those of you who are here, and I think it's really important to remember that this is not always the biggest shows. We actually continue to see that many smaller podcasts are able to more deeply connect with their listeners, leading to longer listen-through rates, lower skip rates, and more effective conversions. This is something we continue to really lean into at Acast. And on that note, we're really committed to our creators and helping them understand their audiences. This is extremely important for podcasters of all sizes. We know that they all care deeply about their audiences, how to grow them, how to connect with them. So we work closely with our podcasters in a lot of different ways to work on this. We're working on doing some kind of audience survey work at scale to better understand who's listening to podcasts. So, whether it's a new show just starting their journey and wanting to understand their valuable audience, like Ways to Win, the newest launch from Higher Ground, or a long-time show like Self-Care Podcast Forever 35, they're going through kind of a creative refresh and want to understand who's still listening, why are they listening, who more can we reach? So we're really trying to kind of productize how we reach out to our audiences and better understand them, which obviously is very helpful for you as well. We also do a lot of work with creators who are excellent across multiple platforms. We want to help them understand how to move their audiences from A to B, right? So that could be Brooke Devard of Naked Beauty, who has a really engaged Instagram audience. How do we get them to the podcast and vice versa? Similar with Shixton Gigs, excellent on YouTube. How do we bring them back and forth and make sure we're kind of cross-pollinating that world? And then finally, some of those premium media networks like Warner Brothers Discovery, they've got audiences all over the place, right? So we're working closely with them on the Food Network. How do we think about their delivery mechanisms and their various feeds and making sure they're both speaking to their brand audiences who are dedicated already and also reaching new kind of diverse, younger audiences in podcasting? And then finally, we're really looking to support new shows. It's really hard to find an audience in podcasting, so we want to support shows that have a wonderful vision and are trying to get out there, find their audience, connect with them, and help you guys reach that audience as well. So whether that be Comfort Food with Kelly Rizzo or The Amendment from our friends at Wonder, we are putting them through this kind of top-rate audience development program called Acast Accelerator. Again, this is a major focus for us because we know that that authentic connection is really where the magic happens. So this relationship between creators and audiences really is the most important part of the industry, really. It's the power of the medium. But again, we've been really careful to not just use the word listener throughout, right? These people are so much more. Look at this fan base at the Giggly Squad live event recently. Yes, many of them are probably podcast listeners, but they're fans, they're friends, they're followers. They are true dedicated audiences. To hear a little bit more about that, we're going to pass back over to Greg, but I just want to lean in a little bit more on like how we are really trying to focus on cultivating the audiences that our creators reach. Why? We know there's potential for expansion in the next decade. As Greg said, we really feel like there's a lot left to do in this space. Only a third of Americans still haven't even listened to a podcast. There's a lot more to do here. And yes, there's a lot of doom and gloom and listenership is plateauing. And we are seeing that on some shows, I'm not gonna lie. But overall, there is so much space for growth. And I think if we better understand audience development tactics, who's listening, why they're listening, how they're listening, to which shows, on which platforms, I think there's just a lot more that we can do and a lot of room for growth. So I'm gonna pass back over to Greg to tell you more.
Great. All right. So yeah, I mean, look, 36% of Americans have not listened to a podcast yet. So to me, that's tailwinds, right? Of our three constituents, tailwinds and audience is really, really hard. It's not a lot of industries have that. So I think this is really special on its own. Now, why did we bifurcate creator from audience? Because we can now, right? In the beginning of podcasting, you couldn't do that. If you were here last year, we talked about our purchase of Podchaser, being able to analyze data. They've got literally 4 million podcasts, tons of data on the audiences. It's really remarkable. So we set about trying to get much smarter on how we analyze the audience. We collect all the data that's available publicly, we analyze it, and we try and get better for our advertisers. And what that's led to, better audience targeting, better results for our advertisers, larger buys on average, which is good for everybody, more shows per buy, and more cat food sold. So we've gotten much, much smarter over the past year. It's working, and that's really what's led to our growth, particularly in the US. So, creators and audience, obviously the most important, but a lot of us are here for this, right? This is what makes this a business and not just a hobby. This dumb slide. So, I hate this slide. I've already dated myself with the Seinfeld thing, so I'll just tell you, I started selling radio. I've sold everything, but I've started selling radio in 1996, and I had this stupid chart in my flip book that I used to take to ad agencies, and I think that the audio share of ad spend at the time was 11%. So we've all been whining about this for 25 years, and we lost 2 percentage points. So great job, everybody. Let's try something different. Let's try adding value, okay? So right now, this is the other tailwind that I'm almost more excited about than the third of Americans who haven't listened to a podcast yet. Only 14 of the top 100 advertisers have really done anything more than a test budget, right? If you're spending $1 billion to $2 billion globally, and $10 million is couch change, it's a test budget. So it's less than 0.3% of their overall spend. Now, the good news is they're coming. Like, we know they're coming. If you're in this room and you're in podcasting, you've gotten an RFI from some of these people. They're podcast curious. They want to participate. The reason they want to participate is our fastest growing category, 2023 spend among the 10 biggest podcast advertisers grew 47%. Now, I have to give a shout out to the performance and DR advertisers in the US who built this business. They are attribution animals, right? And they only buy stuff that works. Every week you get a report card, and if it's not working, you're not getting bought. So the fact that they're spending 47% more means one thing: it works. It sells stuff, it signs people up, it sells subscriptions. So if you're a blue chip brand, you look at this and you say, this is a place that I need to be. So they are coming. I mean, this guy is probably listening to his first podcast. Look at the disposable income he's got, expensive headphones. So unfortunately, this stat's the same as last year, right? So 44% of the US podcasts, 44% of the dollars, only reach 12% of the audience. That's changing so quickly. All the stuff we showed you with Podchaser, all the stuff that our colleagues just talked about, we're all getting smarter. We're adding more and more buys. So we're up 182%, not in revenue, but in number of shows per buy. So the long tail, again, if you have 125,000 shows, you can't just sell 500. We have to be able to sell across that audience, right? We talk a lot about, the industry in the US started vertically, right? You buy a show, you call that show, and you buy that show. That's wonderful. That's how you wind up with all of this 500 shows getting all the money. You've got to go, we really need to be able to do both. I used to think it was one or the other. You have to be able to do both. We need the industry to be able to be vertical. That's what makes podcasting so unique. We need to be able to be vertical and also be horizontal and sell audience across the long tail. This is coming. We're getting smarter, right? Acast is not a rep firm. We're not a reseller. We're not a sales house. We've got over 400 employees, and more than a quarter of them are engineers, right? We are not we want to be the ones that do this for ourselves, right? If you could go back in time, all of the wonderful digital publishers that create content, newspapers and magazines, and just incredible audiences, well, guess what? Ad tech came in, sat on top of them, and drank their milkshake, and took all the money. So we don't want that to happen to our industry, and it's up to us. We really need to all work together, lock arms, and make this happen. So that's what we're here to sort of advocate for. As you go to market, this is the way we go to market. I think this is the way podcasting is sold right now. From high touch, high dollars on the left to low touch, high volume on the right. I'm going to give you a couple of examples on both ends. But if you think about this, integrated campaigns, which are growing really fast, sometimes those are vertical, sometimes they're horizontal. The audio teams that are buying streaming and radio and network radio, sometimes they want to buy a market and a show, sometimes they want to buy an audience. Performance DR, they tend to lean in vertical. Wonderful, we love that. Buy the shows that you're comfortable with, get to know them, that's great. Programmatic, completely horizontal, that's fine too. And then self-serve, we've figured out a way to do this at scale. So we'll talk about these two things quickly. Everyone says this, but it's true. We are podcast first, not only, right? So think about a show like Danny Pellegrino. If you listen to the show at all, it's wonderful. He's got a branded segment with KFC. It's his niece and nephew. Sometimes they talk about their love of KFC nuggets. Sometimes they don't. But it's a segment that people look forward to because it's hilarious. Sponsored stories, branded series on financial literacy, branded episodes. We can do almost anything because it's the most creative medium. It's word of mouth at scale, which is sort of the holy grail. I've sold everything. Having word of mouth at scale is what brands want. Then you look at things like this, I don't know, this is not an RSS feed, I can tell you that. Social, gamification, live events, tours, editorial. The busiest team at our company is the creative and integrated marketing teams, because people are coming to us with brand briefs that aren't just, hey, I want to buy some audio. It's, I've got a marketing problem, can you help me with your audience? So this is coming. One example I love, because we talked about athletes. For those of you who know Peter Crouchy, he's a superstar in England, captain of Team England, star of the World Cup, played for Liverpool and Tottenham, retired in 2019, and like every athlete, he started a podcast, because that's what you have to do when you retire. But he's actually really funny, really clever, really sarcastic, and he might be more popular from his podcast than he was from playing soccer or football, depending on where you live. So one example is, we did a deal that's sort of a simple naming rights for the studio with Brewdog, where you've got a beer, and he's an athlete, and he's got his mates, and they're in there, and it's a beer, okay, wonderful. But then they start going to the Brewmaster, and they're doing YouTube episodes at the Brewmaster, where they're drinking and doing the episodes. Then they start a listener contest for artwork on the cans. Then they actually create a beer that is now for sale in the UK. So this simple sponsorship has turned into a product that is for sale. So I don't know what you call this, but this is not audio in an RSS feed. This is something much more. So again, we're just scratching the surface on this stuff. And then on the other end of the spectrum, the low touch, there's not a lot of human beings involved in this, but we can do the same thing, vertical and horizontal at scale. Truth be told, we launched our self-serve platform so that our salespeople wouldn't have to do $10,000 buys, all one after the other. And it turned into a really interesting way where you can get everything in one place, vertical, horizontal, pick your shows, pick your audience, give us your targeting, and we can create a campaign for you anywhere in the world through self-serve. We've run millions of dollars in a year and a half through this platform, almost a couple thousand advertisers now. And then once the deal is done, we have a platform called Ad Collab, where you can work with our producers, the show producers, trade creative back and forth, give feedback, all on 2 platforms, low touch, high volume, vertical, horizontal, at scale. So this is all new and it's coming, so we think the next 10 years is really, really exciting. So in summary, rare tailwinds, again, I can't think in the last 20 years of a platform that's had tailwinds with audience and advertisers. Maybe CTV, and that is really boring, sorry, David. Let's lock arms and roll out the red carpet for brands. We're not making it easy, right? We have a lot, everyone wants to grade their own homework. We all have our little custom stuff. We need to work together because a lot of the brands are gonna come, and if our house is a mess, they're not gonna come back. So we really need to work together. Vertical and horizontal, please, let's all do that. If you've got 4 shows, then sell it vertically. If you've got a long tail, sell it horizontally. And if you could do both, do both. And podcasting, like all due respect to like our colleagues who are here, it's not a little brother or a subcategory to streaming or radio or network. It is different. I think it's unique, and I think we have to treat it that way. So let's control our own destiny. All right, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.